Would it be better if voters decided whom they wanted as president? Well, one analyst believes that South Africans want to choose their president directly. Sanusha Naidu from the Institute for Global Dialogue says it seems people have had enough of the current proportional representation system, or PR system, as it is sort of known for short. Sanusha, good morning. Firstly, can I just start with an overriding question? How sure are you from your analysis that people now want to be having a direct election of the President of the Republic?
Good morning, Dan. I think it's you can see that by the reflection of the mood. When you talk to people, you get the sense that we're not really clear who we're going to vote for, or you get the impression that people are kind of caught in a crosswind because they're looking at what's happening through the evidence coming through state capture. They're looking at the newspaper reports. They're experiencing electricity outages, the water shortage and drought, etc. But I think the challenge here is not so much about the fact that it's about, we feel like, we just want to go into a new realm of things. But the fact of the matter is that the people, there's a sense of not understanding or not being clear about whether, if I don't vote for this party, which I've been loyal to for so many years of my life, who else do I vote for? And what is happening very interestingly is that the question comes back to, why do people still vote for the political party that hasn't delivered, or the political party that doesn't actually take their interest into consideration? And that comes back to the way in which the PR system is developed, framed, and constituted. And so even if you are wanting to vote for a particular person in a party, at the end of the day, the party decides how that person is either elected as a president of the republic, or what kind of political position they have within the republic.
But voting for a president directly would require electoral reform, because currently we know what our electoral laws are. And way back in 2003, the Frederick van Zyl-Slabbert Commission of Inquiry, with that report, it also had a suggestion of how we could go for a constituency system, but nothing has been done there. Is there a lack of political will, you think, to reform the electoral law in order for us to directly elect our president?
I think when you look at it, Dan, you go back and look at 94, and then, of course, you look at the Slabbert report, etc. I think, at the time, it was very interesting to see that it was about how a PR system would expand the voting base for a political party. Don't forget, we've also had floor crossing in that period as well. And so that also kind of complicated the system, complicated the way in which the system evolved. But I think the challenge for many political parties, etc., is that do you want an individual within a party or an individual to be voted into a political system where you don't have first past the winner post kind of approach? And that, I think, seems to have informed a lot of the reaction towards this mixed constituency PR system, the recommendations towards the Van Zyl-Slabbert report. But bearing in mind that even in the same way that we had to deal and go through the whole process and a long-winded road around party political funding, I think we're going to have a similar situation emerge with regard to the whole question of how the electoral system and the way in which voting takes place is reformed and actually aligns to what is a mixed system. And I think to some extent, where you start to see the numbers drop, where you start to see the fact that the bigger the South African voting pool is in terms of number of people that are eligible, the more and more you're going to have these complications around the PR system. Right now, I think the polling around particular personalities, or the polling around the president of the ANC versus polling around the way in which people see the political party, I think is definitely an indicator that something needs to start to give around this. So I think to some extent, parties were kind of unsure of what does this mean for them as a political party. But at the end of the day, I think right now we're beginning to see that when you start to enter into this kind of terrain where the personality is much more has a much more favorable polling than the political party, then you start asking the question, what do you want? And I think if you go out there and start doing a kind of analysis around, or even a survey around this with regard to the electorate, it may be interesting to see what some people are saying about a constituency and a PR system. Also bearing in mind that there needs to be a lot of education about the fact that how the PR system works.
Okay, now very, very briefly and finally, a constituency-based system would also be ideal for democracy, one would guess, because then the voters would feel they are more in control in their constituency to influence who leads them or represents them in parliament. But also, I guess, if we were to reform the law, the electoral laws, and for a direct presidential election, that will be very good, because we can have independents coming in and say, I think I can do a better job as the head of state than any of the other figureheads of the political parties.
I think what I need to do is also just create a bit of a kind of condition here, that it's not necessarily that any of the proposed systems around the electoral process is a foolproof system, or it has fail-safe mechanisms. I think we're going to see challenges. We're going to see internal dynamics that may not necessarily be viewed in a positive way. But it does give a competitiveness to the electoral landscape as it stands now. It does make the electoral landscape more open. It also enables us to ask the question in terms of this number of political parties we have. It doesn't mean we're not going to have a number of independents and have a direct presidential election with a number of candidates who stand up and put their hand up and say, I want to contest. But the challenge for us right now is that I think voters are just uncertain, because the frustration of what is going on in the country has actually set in. And so they're looking for alternatives. But are the alternatives that are coming in the ones they want to vote for? So, if you take a political party and you take an individual and you take the role of independence, it's very important to look at also the credibility, credentials, and how much these individuals standing as independents or standing as in the context of direct presidential elections, how much of legitimacy they do have as well. So I'm not saying that it's let's just change the system and it's wonderful and we'll resolve the issues. Each system will have its pros and cons, its strengths and weaknesses. But I think we've got to look at it in the context of how we need to vote in terms of the kind of political leaders we want.
Thank you very much. That's Sanusha Naidoo giving us some of her views about the need to reform our electoral laws to make our democracy more vibrant and get people still excited about voting.